Welcome back to the Bitcoin Brothers Australia podcast. You are watching episode 11, and we have the great man back. You might recognize him from Real Estate vs. Bitcoin. He's been a bit of a real estate tycoon. He's dabbled in a lot of things, and he's back with us today. His name is Dwight Veenman. Welcome, mate.
Thanks for having me, mate.
Mate, so good of you to come back on. So we did have another interesting guest actually lined up for today. He messaged me about 2 a.m. and said, sorry, mate, I'm currently not very well on the toilet and don't think I'll be doing anything tomorrow. So
could you give us some more details, Josh?
I think he was throwing up, but hopefully we'll get him back on in the next few weeks. But he was an interesting guest who was involved in the FTX collapse. So we'll dive into a bit of security and Bitcoin and things like that with him in a couple of weeks' time when he's feeling better. But Dwight, you've jumped on for us, mate, and we actually wanted to get you back on soon as well because we sent you off to the Bitcoin. What was it?
It was Josh. It was the Bitcoin Bush Bash.
The Bitcoin Bush Bash in Beechworth. We sent him off there on behalf of the Bitcoin Brothers Australia.
Happy to represent, mate.
Sponsored us. We sponsored him.
Thanks. I'll put the invoice in soon, and you can pay me in sats.
Metaphorically, is that?
Pay me in sats.
Yeah, we'll give you some sats for your work. But
we're an all Bitcoin network, aren't we?
We are, and look forward to talking to you about that. It's certainly a very exciting thing happening around the country. The Bitcoin Bush Bash. Kind of like some little Bitcoin conferences and things like that where people go to learn and network and find out more about Bitcoin. So certainly excited to talk to you about that. We have heaps of news, starting with the Saints have won 3 in a row. You beauty.
Josh, I got one question. Are they any good? Are they actually any good?
Well, Kane Corns still doesn't think so, but I'm very excited.
He's a very smart and astute man.
He likes to have an ego and an opinion. I don't mind a lot of his stuff, but he just, for some reason, hates the Saints. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, we're just talking about AFL at the moment, and I love the Saints, and we've won 3 in a row. So I'm a bit excited. Dwight's a Pies man. You guys have won 3 in a row as well, I think.
Yeah, but not flags and not for a while.
Yeah, well, we haven't even got 3 to talk about. So we'll move on. But anyway, go Saints. Actually, on our last episode, we recorded it before Saints Geelong. And Jono and I were talking about it. And we were, everyone tipped us for bottom 4 and we're going to get smashed by Geelong. And then we made a prediction to say, hopefully when you listen to this episode, the Saints would have won. And we come back on and we won 3. So very excited. I'm very excited.
This is quality. This is high signal, Josh.
We better jump into the Bitcoin news because most of our listeners probably don't care about St Kilda winning as much as I do, mate. But the first and biggest thing...
All guests, bro.
The first and biggest thing, there's probably 2 big things that have happened in the last couple of weeks since our last episode. And
is that about, are you talking about Max King?
I'm not talking about St Kilda anymore. I'm talking about Bitcoin. And that is financial markets in general. There's blood in the waters. There's blood in the streets. There's blood everywhere. We've got record losses.
This is fantastic news, isn't it, Josh?
It is
you want me to be
so good.
Yeah,
it is so good. It doesn't really affect most of us in our day-to-day stuff, but you'll see it on the news. You would have seen it everywhere. You can't help but not mention it. There's stuff going on in the US. I was looking at things this morning. It was like 3 record days in a row of just trillions and trillions of dollar losses. And Bitcoin actually has held pretty well. So Bitcoin's been around the 80,000, 83,000 US dollars for, over a month now. And it's the first time where there's been a huge loss financially in everything else, but Bitcoin kind of held its own. So it's interesting. And people are saying that the split will happen, and potentially even more this year where historically it might have followed the markets quite a bit. And this year might be the year that they call it decoupling.
They do, Joshua. They
Have
do.
you seen that?
I've been listening to the podcast as well, my friend. No, but it is true. I mean, there is a sort of link. People, I don't know, they equate, is that the right word? Or they sort of conflate Bitcoin with perhaps tech stocks, right?
Yes.
More specifically tech stocks. Like, it's another, tech product, really. We'll kind of put it in that basket, right?
Yeah.
And then there's supposedly going to be this potentially great decoupling where Bitcoin stands alone.
Yeah.
And it might be happening now. Or
it might be the start of it.
Or next week. But you're right. We could look back in history and go, hey, remember back then? That's when it actually really did start to become something different from the stock market, separate from the NASDAQ, separate from the S&P 500, something that stood alone and, became more of a, I don't know, a safe haven?
Yeah, a store of value.
Yeah. Who'd have thought, hey?
Who'd have thought? A safe haven and a store of value. Huge news. It's been all over everything. You can't really have missed it. But Bitcoin, fascinating to see what happens in the next couple of weeks with everything, with the tariffs in the US, with all the things that are happening. But I suspect at this time in about 3 or 4 months, we will be looking back and saying, yeah, wow. Bitcoin, that was the moment really where it did start to stand alone and it just rose above. So there you go.
There you go.
The next big thing. So GME. So we've spoken about this, I'm sure. This happened in the last couple of weeks. So GME, they're a GameStop company. They're a US-based video game retailer. They're known for its brick and mortar stores and its role in the 2021 meme stock frenzy, which was all driven by retail investors. There's a fascinating movie called Dumb Money.
Dumb Money? What's that about, Josh?
Well, I'm pretty sure I sent this to you and made you watch it one time because I said, this is very interesting. There's a guy whose nickname is Roaring Kitty, and there's a huge following, and basically they just drove this stock and everyone got really rich.
I watched that movie, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Why is GME in the news? Why is it big news? So GME have decided that they are going to be buying Bitcoin. Not only are they buying Bitcoin, but they are going to be a Bitcoin treasury company, which is very, very, very bullish.
It is.
The more companies that join, the quicker this ride goes this year, and the more, I guess, beneficial it is for the companies that join as well, because they will follow the MicroStrategy formula.
It's kind of like the companies in the toilet, right, Josh?
It
Really,
actually
let's
is.
be honest.
So this is
a
yes.
last-ditch effort to remain relevant
Yes.
and afloat, right?
Yeah.
But it might work.
Well, yeah, well, I suspect that it will. So it's very interesting. So as you say, so GME, video game retailer, basically, who goes to the shops to buy video games now? Not that many people, right? I mean, they sell some other things as well, but most people just download things, buy what they need to online. So it struggles a little bit. People do go there, but obviously the numbers are dwindling.
But it's basically Blockbuster for video games in the US.
Yeah,
right?
that's
and we all use Blockbuster as a meme for something that is like a financial dinosaur, right?
Yes, very true.
And yet somehow this GameStop that should be like Blockbuster had a renaissance 3 or 4 years ago because of the Roaring Kitty nonsense.
Yes.
And for no other reason, right?
Yeah.
Really.
Yep.
And now they've gone like, well, that's run its course. Let's do something solid and dependable and try and make some actual money instead of pretend pump and dump money, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Actual real money.
Yeah, 100%. So what are they doing? So they're adding Bitcoin as a treasury reserve asset. They're planning to use cash reservations and proceeds from a 1.5 billion convertible bond sale in exactly the way that MicroStrategy did this and started. So they've met with Michael Saylor. They're following his formula step by step. They closed the convertible bond sale on April 1st. And they have stated that they're going to use that money to buy Bitcoin. The other interesting thing is they have over $4 billion in cash. In cash to do something with. So this could not just be a $1.5 billion buy. This could be quite a lot more than that. And if they continue the way that MicroStrategy has, they have plans to... Yeah, I mean, I don't know what numbers you're going to run, but we'll go through what happened with MicroStrategy and what will happen with GME if they do follow that. And right now they are completely on track to follow that. So that would be very, very, very interesting.
Smells like it smells like a sequel.
Yeah.
Right? Come on, Paul.
Yeah.
He's punch it up, that's all I'm saying.
Well, yeah, I think we gathered your thoughts on that one, mate. Thank you for that.
Just an average looking bloke, you know.
So it's a major corporate adoption move following MicroStrategy's lead. This could obviously boost Bitcoin's price, but it really just continues that play of kind of game theory, of Bitcoin credibility, of that store of value we spoke about, of that safe haven, somewhere to put your money. And it's like, hey, we've got all this cash. Our business is not doing that well anymore. What are we going to do with our cash? And this is another big company that have decided that we're going to invest in Bitcoin. And we're going to do it heavily. The other interesting thing about this is they have a similar clientele, I feel, to like the Bitcoin fanatics, if you like. which is like, buy
Incels.
and hold and never sell your Bitcoin. Well, these guys are like, never sell your GME shares, you know? You know what I mean? You see the movie and they're
Because
all
no
like,
one wants them.
I'm not selling, right? I'm not selling. Roaring Kitty's not selling. I'm not selling. These guys are fanatics. They're passionate about the stock. They love the stock, right?
Okay.
So it's like you're combining two, just...
There is an element of rabid fanaticism amongst the two communities. There is a sense of overlap, right?
Yeah.
It's a bit like Saints and Pies fans. Kind of.
Wow. Anyway.
But without the success.
Yes. No, I'm pretty sure we've beaten you in one grand final and you've beaten us in one, and we drew in one, so
We're even.
We're even. Yeah, there you go. Now let's follow the strategy. Let's dig down the rabbit hole a little
Lay it
bit.
out for me, because I don't really understand, Josh. If you could explain.
Yeah. So strategy, Michael Saylor, they've purchased another 22,000 Bitcoin in the last week. So we know we've spoken about this. They raise money, they get money, they loan money at 0%, and they buy Bitcoin. So their holdings are now, so we spoke about this 4 episodes ago where they were just under 500,000. I think with Peter Apple, and he was saying, come on guys, just buy another 1,000.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Round
it up.
You can't sit under 500,000 Bitcoin at 499 or 498.
Mm.
Well, they've bought more Bitcoin. They're up to 528,185 Bitcoin. Now, at the start of 2020, this company, Strategy is now the name, they were worth 1.39 billion. That's what they were worth.
That's a lot, right?
Well, yeah, it's not bad, but they similar thing to GameStop. Like some of their technology stuff, it was just dying out a little bit. So it was like, well, what else can we do to reinvent ourselves? How do we get ahead? How do we beat inflation?
And now?
So they're worth $45 billion. So gone from 1.3 to 45 billion at the start of 2020 to we're in the start of 2025. So in 5 years, they've transformed their company, I think it would be fair to say. Now, you take into account stock splits and things like that. The share price was around $12 at the start of 2020. If you wanted to buy a share in MicroStrategy or Strategy, it was $12 at the start of 2020 per share. Now, GME at the moment is around $20 per share. So pretty close from the start when they're starting their Bitcoin journeys. Now, the price of MicroStrategy shares now are over $300. So that's, it did actually get up to 500, I think, in November last year. But we've had a bit of blood in the water, blood in the streets, as we spoke about on the stock markets, and a bit of a correction in Bitcoin over the last couple of months. So, yeah, hovering around that $300 per share. So they've gone from $12 a share to about $300 a share, right?
It's pretty good.
So if you're investing, if you're investing $100,000 in this company at the start of 2020, you've got just over $3 million 5 years later.
I mean, you could have done better, right? Like if you'd invested in property developments and things.
I think you.
No. Sorry.
I think you're way off. So nothing's beaten this, from what I could see in all my research. Nothing's beaten these companies, these returns. Definitely not property. Definitely not. Definitely not anything else. So yeah, 100K started 2020. If you invested, you'd have over $3 million. About 5 years later. The current GME share price, as I said, just over $20. If they follow that blueprint, that means in 5 years, if they just do the same thing, which it's so funny when they started, because they literally, I don't know exactly how it works, but they literally put out this same thing as MicroStrategy in terms of, hey, we're raising money, we want to pay you at 0%. We want to raise 1.5 billion, and then we want to buy Bitcoin. Like exactly the same thing as MicroStrategy do. They've followed it. So if everything else follows MicroStrategy, you can buy GME share price. Sorry, you can buy GME shares for $20 at the moment, roughly $20 in US terms, by the way. So we're talking about US dollars at the moment, and that share price in 5 years would be over $600. So
this is financial advice.
This is not financial advice.
Like any disclaimers here, Josh? Do you own any of these stocks?
I do.
Yeah, here we go. You're trying to pump your bags, eh?
No. Actually, when I just thought we'd jump on just a little bit, nothing too serious, but just for fun, just to jump on board, just to say I have some GME shares and some MicroStrategy shares and a little bit of Bitcoin. You get to that 0.1
So
Bitcoin.
if I was to ask you how many GME shares you have,
I'd say not enough, V.
Thank you, Josh.
I don't have enough. Of course I don't have enough. But it is fun to have a look at. So this is for educational purposes. No, is that what you say? Entertainment purposes? I don't know. We're not financial.
Evidentiary purposes.
But what we do know is that if it follows all we're saying is if it literally followed MicroStrategy, you could buy for $20 right now, you could buy a share of GME. And if it followed MicroStrategy in 5 years' time, it would be over $600 per share. That's just historical data. So we're not, do whatever you want with that, but we're not interested in what you do. This obviously doesn't account for everything that's happened in the last few months to bolster Bitcoin. So this is the other interesting part. So MicroStrategy started it. When they started, there was no strategic reserve coming in. There was no ETFs buying, billions and trillions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. There was no big other companies. There was no other companies buying Bitcoin, right? And they've managed to have this move over 5 years. Now all these things are happening. Interesting. Could $600 a share in 5 years be a bear case, V?
Well, that would be rabid speculation, Josh. I've got no idea. I don't understand what they're doing. I still don't understand, having watched that Netflix show,
how it makes money, or
Paul Dano's punching up. Anyway, but maybe GameStop's going to punch up, right?
Yes. Well, hey,
I'm just trying to bring it back to.
Yeah, I think you might be right. Now, this is the other interesting thing. This is the really bullish news, and this whole thing for me. This is where, because I'm always a really big believer of don't listen to what people say, you watch what they do, right? So it's people say all sorts of things, but what are they actually doing themselves? Ryan Cohen, who is the GME CEO, he owns the most percentage of GameStop shares. He, 3 days ago, purchased 500,000 shares of GameStop. Don't watch what people do. Sorry. Don't watch what they say, watch what they do. This guy's buying 500,000 shares at $21.55 a share. I think he got it at, because they have to declare these things. So you see these in the filings. So that's to me is hey, if this guy, the guy who already, is obviously very well off, he's trying to, get this into a Bitcoin company, he can see what's coming. He's hey, I don't have enough. You know
How
what
many
I mean?
have you got? Not enough.
Not enough. So he's bought 500,000 more shares himself. So interesting news. Moving on, staying in the US for now. So Trump mining. So Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr. launched American Bitcoin. Now this is a Bitcoin mining venture. Partnered with Hut 8, it's a Florida-based company to create an industrial-scale operation. Now, Hut 8 owns about 80% of American Bitcoin, and the Trumps and investors hold about 20%. They aim to be the world's largest, most efficient Bitcoin miner and build a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Now, Eric, remember we spoke about him? He was with Metaplanet, I think, in that other company as well. He's an advisory there. So he's serving as the Chief Strategy Officer. This was announced on the 31st of March, 2025. So this is really interesting. You've started, since our last episode, a little bit of Bitcoin mining. Is that fair to say? A little bit.
Fact check true.
Yes, that's all I wanted.
Yeah, haven't actually collected too many Bitcoins just yet. But when I do, they're going to be mint Bitcoins. You know what I mean?
Limited edition.
I'm not going to have to worry about, cleaning up my on-chain data and, merging all my sats together, because I'll have a nice freshly minted Bitcoin, that I can then sell at a premium down the track above the Bitcoin price, because it's all neat and tidy and, but I mean, it's not going to happen. I've just got a little BitAxe and,
nice.
It might take you, in theory, 500 years and you might find a Bitcoin or something.
500 years.
Assuming you've got really, really good uptime.
Yeah.
Now, can I ask you a personal question,
No,
Josh?
Don. No.
Sorry.
No. I don't mind any Bitcoin. I haven't learnt that much yet. I would like to see how you do it, though. I would definitely, we're all about the learning this year. So that is one of the things I would like to learn this year and see is how you actually do that. But yes, very interesting. The Trumps are obviously very bullish. We've spoken about that. Again, don't watch what people say, watch what they do. And these guys clearly are all in. Right? I mean, I don't know how else, when you look at everything else that they're doing, they're starting their own Bitcoin mining venture, right?
No, look, one thing you can say about the Trumps is they do say a lot of things.
Yes, they do. Good, bad, whatever.
Yeah.
But what are they actually doing? Yeah, that's right. BlackRock. This was really interesting news as well. Now, in any other weeks, this almost would have been like the lead story, but there's just, it's been a couple of weeks and there's a lot happening
Not
in the
after
world.
the three-peat, Josh.
Well, yeah, great. Not after the Saints won 3 in a row. But BlackRock, the CEO of BlackRock, Larry Fink, spoken about him a lot on this show. So he has said, he stated it as some people stated it as a warning. I don't know if it's a warning, but he warned, apparently, that Bitcoin could challenge the US dollar's status as the world's reserve currency. Now, how did he do this? In his 2025 annual letter to investors. So this is not like an off-the-cuff, just having a bit of a muck around. Right. This is like, hey, I'm writing to my investors, and I'm telling you all that Bitcoin could become the world reserve currency. That's like, this is the guy who is in charge of the largest fund in the world, like over 11 trillion or something, like a quarter of the whole world's assets or more. Like, he is writing to his investors saying, hey, Bitcoin could be the world reserve currency. Did you know that?
I did not know that he'd done that. That is very interesting news, and it's very bullish, and it's a little bit like, when they say on podcasts, they said the quiet part out loud. Isn't it, Josh?
Yeah, it
right?
is.
It's like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what we think. Like, that's the whole premise of Bitcoin. If you go back to, reading the Bitcoin Standard or any of those, really deep, theory of Bitcoin business, it's like we want it to become what everything refers back to, right?
Yes, yeah, because it is the fairest, safest, hardest money.
It doesn't change, right?
Yeah,
it's unchanging.
Yeah.
Like Aslan's eyes, Anyway, unchanging.
So that's brilliant.
Josh, have you filled my script recently? I think I'm running low on meds.
Perfect. Thank you for that, V. No, look, so Fink highlighted that rising US debt and deficits as potential drivers for investors to view Bitcoin as the safer asset. So he's almost saying, hey, this is a safer asset than the US dollar at the moment, which is really interesting. We'll touch on the Australian dollar in a minute too, because if you think the US dollar's bad, the Australian dollar is tanking to record lows, under 60 cents. $1 Australian dollar I just saw is now, in the last 2 days or something, it tanked from like 63, 64 to like almost under 60. So $1 US dollar.
Yeah, but it
60.
But it makes it look like my
cents.
Bitcoin's gone up.
Yeah, because so if you own Bitcoin in Australia, Australian dollars, it's going up.
Even when it's going down.
Even though actual Bitcoin might be going down, because we're in Australia and cashing out in Australian dollars. Well, there you go. Very funny. Not that we're ever cashing out, V. But fun to look at. He noted that if the US fails to manage its fiscal issues, Bitcoin's decentralized nature could erode the dollar's global dominance. There's already been, and I think we'll touch about this because it's probably a good segue. There's been a bit of news in Russia and things too, but there's other countries already we know are actually paying each other in Bitcoin. Bitcoin and gold is the thing that, other countries are trying to load up on at the moment. So, fascinating. Now, Fink remains bullish on digital assets, citing BlackRock's successful Bitcoin ETF, which is IBIT, and the potential of tokenization in finance. But I thought that was very, very big news. We move on out of the US to some international news. Now, we just spoke about that then, kind of a good segue to Russia. So Russia's cryptocurrency trade expansion has gained significant attention in recent days, particularly following a leak a couple of weeks ago, which revealed that Russian oil companies are quietly using Bitcoin and Tether's USDT to conduct international trade with China and India. So, hey, Russia have all these sanctions on them. It's like, hey, we're not allowing you to do all these things. They're like, hey, well, we'll just do it in Bitcoin. Interesting. I think that's the way that it's heading. So this move is seen as a strategic workaround to skirt the Western sanctions, leveraging crypto's decentralized nature to facilitate cross-border payments for oil exports. The Bank of Russia has also softened its historically hardline stance on cryptocurrencies, opening Bitcoin and crypto purchases to a limited circle of Russian investors as part of this shift. That's interesting too, because like obviously governments, if you're in charge and you're seeing, a threat to your own currency, easy to then say, hey, let's get rid of this threat, let's ban it. And I think on the episode that you came on, that was probably one of the things that, would hold you back a little bit, would be like, hey, I think, like government's just going to ban this thing.
It's always a risk, right?
Yeah.
They can do all sorts of stuff to you.
Funny.
Governments, interesting people, yeah.
Funny how it changes a little bit here, because it's like all of a sudden, instead of the negative, they're seeing it, oh, hang on, this thing could actually be useful for us right now.
That's right. I mean, don't get me wrong, the government isn't out to get you. They don't care about you. They're not interested in you. They're just out to benefit themselves.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you know, if they see Bitcoin as a threat to themselves, they might try and squish it.
Yeah, which is what has happened here in the past in
and
Russia.
if they're pushed into a corner,
yeah.
you know, the law of unintended consequences, perhaps,
yeah.
all of a sudden it becomes quite attractive for a nation like Russia to go, oh, hang on, I think we can use this. We can settle our international debts and our trade with oil or energy or whatever. We don't need the SWIFT system. We don't need US approval. We don't care. Oh, this actually works outside of that system. So if you've been effectively debanked, as Russia was, they can still carry on.
Yeah.
Right, which is utterly fascinating, isn't it? I wonder if that could apply to any other situations you could imagine, Josh.
I'm sure it could. I'm sure you would have spoken about some of those maybe at the Bitcoin Bush Bash as well. But look, do you know what else is interesting when you say those things is that it goes back to that last kind of news story about the world reserve. Is this the way that it does become the world reserve currency even quicker?
Well, it seems to be happening kind of by stealth, maybe not by planning or, you know, by committee, but just by default.
Yeah.
You know, like it was designed that you could just use it as a thing of last resort, right? No one can sort of shut it down. Like if I needed to send you money, Josh,
yeah,
you know, to pay for the rent of this studio, for example, we're going to have a chat later about the renting of this studio.
Yeah. No, I did hear that.
Josh really needs to be paying his rent. But yes, I could send you money, right?
Yeah.
I could send you sats now on the phone.
Yes.
And
whether I had a bank account or not, whether
you had a bank account or not.
Wouldn't matter.
Whether you could spend that money, that's another question.
Well,
but you could accumulate it.
I definitely could, and I definitely could spend it in other countries, and I could definitely go to Beechworth and buy a T-shirt with it.
You could if you went to the Beechworth Bush Bash.
There you go. So
right, because that's what I did.
Yes.
I bought a T-shirt.
Yes, with sats.
With sats.
Yeah.
I think it worked.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing. You think it's worked.
Yeah.
I sent some sats somewhere. They went out of my wallet.
Yeah.
I think they went into T-Bone's wallet.
If
you're listening, T-Bone, which you're not, but I hope you got that 22,000 sats.
Yes, and then the guy gave you a T-shirt for your 22,000 sats.
Correct. Well,
love it. How good's that?
Except I just took the T-shirt. It was all done on trust because we trust. We don't need to verify in the Bitcoin community.
No, we always verify. Moving on to Qatar. Their interest in a strategic Bitcoin reserve emerged prominently on March 26 when reports indicated the Gulf state was planning to integrate Bitcoin into its national financial strategy. So this aligns with Qatar's broader economic diversification efforts, moving beyond its reliance on oil and gas. Now, the details here are still limited from what we have known so far, but the move is believed to be inspired almost because of what they know that the US is doing with a strategic Bitcoin reserve. So they want to aim to position Qatar as a forward-thinking player in the digital asset space.
Mm.
So yeah, that's another really interesting thing. I guess, just continues with our game theory. You know, countries, you know, is this the year where we see that big spike? We're seeing it with GME. We're seeing it with other countries. We're seeing it with a strategic reserve. Obviously, Qatar there.
No, it's a real. How would you say it in young person speak? It's a real fear of missing out, isn't it, Josh?
It is, and
it's
that's
like
it's
it reminds
the FOMO.
It reminds me of FOMO. FOMO. Which is a great song by Robbie P.
Robbie P.
Robbie P. is a great guy.
Did you meet him at the Bitcoin?
I met him at the Bitcoin Bush Bash.
Yes.
Shout out to Robbie P.
Yep.
I enjoyed a Palmer with Robbie P.
Nice.
And Robbie P. raps and he spits tunes and lays beats and things like that. You know? Yeah.
He raps about Bitcoin?
He raps about Bitcoin. Check him out.
I'll have to have a listen.
On your favourite ways of finding music.
So he's on Spotify or anything like that?
Well, yeah, he is actually.
Did he ask you to come on here and...
No, he didn't. I just thought...
He's not sponsored or anything?
He's not sponsored. And I thought, I'm going to listen to this guy's stuff. And it was like, it sort of just cranks you up and it's
Gets
good.
you motivated.
But FOMO is one of his, number one, on terms of his ranking, FOMO.
Nice,
and it's all about Bitcoin and fear of missing out and you only live once and...
Okay.
Good stuff. But that's what you're saying here, right? When you say game theory, what you're really saying is like, oh crap, they're doing that, we better do it too.
Yes.
It's more complicated, but that's one of the number one motivations, isn't it?
It is. It definitely is. Yeah, 100%. So analysts suggest Qatar could leverage its sovereign wealth fund, one of the world's largest, to acquire significant Bitcoin holdings, potentially mirroring corporate strategies like MicroStrategies. So the announcement has sparked speculation about a Middle Eastern Bitcoin race, with Qatar possibly encouraging other regional powers like the UAE or Saudi Arabia to follow suit. Though still in the planning phase, this development underscores Bitcoin's growing appeal as a reserve asset amid global economic uncertainty. There you go.
Well said, Josh. It's almost as if you're reading off a teleprompter, which is why you sound really, really switched on, and I sound like a sidekick, don't I?
No, that's the news, V. That's just the news. So,
I can't read that distance, Josh.
Look, it's just fascinating news from Qatar, and I think, yeah, exactly like everything you said. I think FOMO starts to kick in, and you hear these stories more and more and more with different countries, and I'd be very surprised at the end of 2025 if there hadn't been significant things happen globally with everything we're reading about now.
Is it okay if I on the show notes publish my public wallet so people can contribute? Because I would like to start my own strategic Bitcoin reserve, and I fear that I'm missing out, but I don't really have enough.
Yes, well, when you see these things, it is very hard to think that you would have enough.
Yes. Sorry, silly.
Coming back home to Australia now, try not to get too wound up here, V, because this will wind you up. But this was a big news story in Australia over the last week, and it involves Bitcoin. So there was a recording that surfaced in Australia featuring a tense exchange between a Westpac customer, so a big bank for those overseas, a big bank in Australia. Now, he's identified, his name was Tim.
Now, I'll stop you here. You're just facts. You're not spouting an opinion about this well-known, veritable, well-loved institution, right? I don't want to give it any trouble.
No. This is no opinion at all.
Worries.
This is just fact.
Am I allowed to say opinion about the so-and-so?
No.
Oh, sorry.
Because I'll probably have to edit a lot. It'll probably take me too long to edit if you give your opinion about this. So maybe...
I'll sit this one out.
Maybe you sit this one out. So what happened if you've missed this? So I'd say, go on to 2GB radio. Ben Fordham, Dr. Ben Fordham, as we like to call him. Dr. Ben Fordham, who hosts a show on 2GB. Is that right? That's right, isn't it? Yeah, 2GB.
Probably, yeah.
So he got a hold of this and it went viral. So the incident gained huge media attention. Tim wanted to transfer $50,000 from his Westpac account to CoinSpot.
Oh, that's Tim, not his real name.
Yeah,
right.
Tim. Yeah, that's like case files that we listen to. That's good. So account to CoinSpot on Australian cryptocurrency exchange to invest in Bitcoin. So he's got 50 grand in his bank. He says, I know what I want to do with this 50 grand. I need to be investing in Bitcoin.
He allegedly knows what he wants to do with it.
My legal advisor too. Maybe I can throw to you for this one. So literally 50 grand in his bank. Wants to buy Bitcoin, says, I'm going to put this to CoinSpot. Now, Westpac, they say no.
I'm literally lost for words, Josh. Because surely,
silence.
It's his money, right? There is no small print in the contract saying that it's an unsecured loan or anything nonsense like that, is there, Josh? Surely it's your money, right?
Surely, if you put your own money in your bank,
I don't know.
Oh my goodness! So Tim,
that might get my blood boiling.
I'm sure it would get most people's, if they actually tried to do this and couldn't do it, it would be very frustrating. So Tim had deposited $80,000 into his Westpac account with the intention of buying Bitcoin. He was planning to monitor the market over the weekend before finalizing his investment. So then, when he went to do it, Westpac blocked the transfer and sent him a text message instructing him to contact their risk management team. After multiple attempts to reach them, Tim spoke with a staff member. And now Tim, and you can listen to this for yourself. Please, if you haven't listened to this, 2GB, Bitcoin, Westpac, and it'll come up. But he described the staff member as rude and obstructive.
Tim.
In the recorded call, the staff member repeatedly questioned Tim's intentions. He keeps asking him to provide a clear answer about his plans, despite Tim stating that he intends to invest in Bitcoin based on the market conditions. It's fascinating. He's like, no, tell us the truth. Tell us what you really want to do with it. Mate, I want to invest in Bitcoin. Oh, no, we don't really like you doing that. What else, tell us what else you're going to do with it.
This is where I don't say the usual standard phrase, because that have to be edited out.
Yes, correct. That's very
Certainly, Josh. I won't say it.
So the staff member then cited Westpac's terms and conditions, implying the bank had the right to withhold the transaction if they felt like it.
Now, you're just paraphrasing.
I'm paraphrasing. But that's not actually in the terms and conditions.
It's 99.98% accurate, isn't it?
It is probably 99.99% accurate. To be honest, I think you sold it short a little bit with your 0.8. You're doing well.
I'm holding back.
You are. You're holding back. Your blood's boiling. I can see it. It's frustrating. Now, Tim literally said to them, this is true. He argued, mate, you're the bank and you've got my money. I want my money back. Like, he kept telling him it's his funds to use, and the staff member just responded that they can't facilitate the payment without full transparency, leaving Tim unable to access his money promptly. It's fascinating.
Josh, they're not staff. I think you'll find these days they're called team members.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, the team members.
Yeah.
The team members. So anyway, look, if you want to buy Bitcoin, and are you allowed to say that you should? Are we allowed to say that you should boycott a bank? Can we get in trouble for that?
I don't know. Let's find out.
Anyway, if I had anything to do with Westpac, I would not be with
David Cram's personal opinion being spoken here.
Didn't need my middle name on the socials.
And what's your address, Joshua David Cram?
No, look, I tell you honestly, if I was with Westpac, all jokes aside, there's no way I'd be with Westpac anymore. If you have a bank telling you what you can and can't do with your money so like blatantly and obnoxiously, and I'd just be like, you know what, thanks but no thanks. I'm going somewhere else.
Tend to agree with you, Josh, and I'm not convinced that this situation's going to get better before it gets worse.
Correct. I can tell you that there are other banks that will do similar things. So speaking to, I won't mention names, but someone else who has been on this podcast, has been speaking to me about, hey, I want to get, just a little bit of support with putting some good quantities of money into Bitcoin, and upon giving them that support, the bank has basically said to them, we're not letting you put into Bitcoin more than like 10 grand a month or something.
That would be CommBank, wouldn't it, Josh?
Wow, that would be, yeah. Probably.
That's just a fact. They're out loud and proud about that.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
So there's other banks that you can, like that, that I know you can kind of get around those things, and you can, as long as you can prove some kind of income and some kind of wealth that you're not money laundering, then it's your money. You can do whatever you want with
Josh,
it.
That obviously begs the question: what if there has been a little bit of dodgy dealings in the past?
I mean, money laundering.
What if you can't?
Well, I can't help you there, V, because that's not something I've ever been a part of.
Bugger.
But you'll have to figure that one out on your own. Dwight, thanks so much for coming back on. It's been a big couple of weeks in Bitcoin. We sent you off to the Bitcoin Bash, the Bitcoin Bush Bash. We sent you there, mate. Tell us, how was it? What did you learn? What was the vibe like? We want to know about it. The Bitcoin Bush Bash in Beechworth. So they do this all around Australia. That's right?
There'll be a handful of these events throughout the year. This was my first one, so I have heard it mentioned on a few podcasts. I thought, hey, I'm going to have a crack, and I'm going to go along to this thing and see what it's about. They would have, a handful, like 3, 4, 5 per year in regional areas. Now, my understanding is going back 4 or 5 years when it might have started, it was born out of necessity because we're in the middle of sort of like lockdowns, coming off lockdown. So it was like, we're not going to do it in the city because it could get locked down. We're not going to do it too close to anyone. So it's going to be in between Sydney and Melbourne or something, things like that. If you listen to the history of how it started. So it was very informal back in the day, and it still is. So it's not an event that you register or pay for. You just turn up, okay? Because that way you don't have to tell anyone who you are. No one asks who you are. You can use a pseudonym. My name's Bitcoin Hodler or something.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's not. It's just a getting together, and it's very, very informal.
Yeah.
But I had a great time. I just turned up to the Beechworth Town Hall.
Yeah.
Once I figured out exactly where that was, and it's sort of in the middle of the information centre.
Okay.
You know, like,
Yeah.
oh, there it is. Beautiful. I mean, you're asking me, what did I learn? It's like, man, it sort of went for 3 days, and it was like, I'm sitting there for about 20 hours listening to people talk, and then I'm going to have a couple of beers. Had a palm with Robbie P. Did I mention Robbie P?
Yeah, you did.
Fans and
No,
bets.
you said,
Um, And there was many, many, many things I learned, but the vibe I got was these people are. I really felt like I'd found my tribe.
Nice.
Like, rather than trying to say this is who the people are, I was like, oh, I found a lot of people who think like me and who feel like me, and we're all going on similar sort of parallel journeys from where we were to where we want to get to. And there's a lot of technical guys there, guys who are, making things, guys who are coding things, guys who have built business empires, and then they want to transition into Bitcoin, and then they're like, how can I make the world a better place with my Bitcoin? There wasn't anyone there who looked like they were a wealthy individual.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't mean some of them I know secondhand now, they're probably quite wealthy individuals.
Like, what do you mean wealthy? How wealthy are we talking?
I really don't know. I would suspect some of these guys have got in the thousands of Bitcoins.
Yeah, wow. Thousands of Bitcoins.
I would suspect.
Yeah.
So some of the guys there, you could tell, they're not worried about themselves. They're more thinking big picture.
Yeah, nice.
And, like, you may not know if you're just listening to this podcast, but when you sort of delve beneath the layers of what Bitcoin is, there is, okay, you start off with Bitcoin. I started off with Bitcoin because Josh said, you should look at Bitcoin V. And I'm like, yeah, I looked at it years ago. It's no good. Like we all do because we're arrogant so-and-sos.
Yeah.
And then you look at it a bit more and go, oh, this could be a really good investment. I need to get some. And then there's, the fear of missing out. I've got to jump on. And then if you choose to make more of it than it's an investment, but you want to understand it, and you're never going to understand it, but you'll understand it more than you did yesterday, right? Like, the idea of Bitcoin, I think, is to have one more sat today than you did yesterday.
Yeah, nice.
Right?
I like
Really,
that.
that's it.
Good.
Like, or each year. Like, you're not going to do it every day, but, each month, each quarter, each year, you want to look at your balance of sats and go, have I got more than I did? And then you're winning.
Yeah.
Right? You also, I believe, you want to understand a little bit more about it. Like how you will ask your guests, what did you learn this week?
Yeah.
Because that's what, if you're a parent, you'd ask your kid, what did you learn today at school, right?
Yeah.
Like, because what's the point of going to school? It isn't to do anything other than to learn, right? Yeah. And what you might learn is something about yourself more than anything. It's more important if you learn something about yourself, right? Like, I learned that I'm a bit of an because I beat up this kid, and then I felt bad about it,
Yeah.
Well, you're a great kid because you have feelings, but like, you really want to learn. So, but what I noticed about the people, they're mostly really humble.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, they might talk and, be full of opinions, but approachable. They want to share. They just want to...
they want to help others understand Bitcoin better?
They wanted to get the knowledge they had.
Yeah.
It was kind of like bursting to get out.
Yeah, nice.
Right? And not dissimilar principle, Josh.
Well, it's like the podcast, when you say that, a little bit. I was like,
it's a bit like the podcast. You want to share.
You have something you're passionate about. You want to talk about it.
Or Josh, listeners of the podcast, it's not a great leap. If you have the good news, Josh.
Yes.
You want it to come out and you want to bring it to other people.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
Yeah.
And that was the general ethos of it, right? People were there and they were bursting with information. They're bursting with good news, and they want you to come away having more information.
Yeah.
And having a expanded understanding. So I couldn't list on one hand, what did I learn from it? Because it's like, I've forgotten more things than I learned. Because like, you can only take on board so many things. But if I was going to say one thing, it's like Bitcoin's way more than a commodity.
Yeah.
Something in the sense that something I buy because I think it's going to go up in value.
Yeah, much more than that.
Much more than that, because it's really it's something you want everyone else to invest in so that their lives can go up in value.
Yeah, that's a very good explanation Yeah,
Like, really.
really good explanation.
Like-
Which is another big reason why we wanted to start this as well. So kind of, it's a great point. Really great point.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds a little bit esoteric, and if you're just listening to this going, just tell me what the heck Bitcoin is, or how I can make money out of it, or shut up and get to the point, right? If that's how you're thinking, then you're not ready for Bitcoin, right? You've just got to, maybe get involved, and that will help you.
First steps.
The best way to get in to understand Bitcoin is to just get involved with Bitcoin.
Yeah,
if that
100%.
means you buying something because you want it to go up, great.
Yeah.
But then spend a bit of time educating yourself, listening to more intelligent podcasts than this one, because believe me, there's some good ones out there. But wherever you start, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't really matter who's telling you about Bitcoin. It's not about them. It's about learning. But yeah, I had a great time at this Bitcoin Bush Bash in Beechworth. The next one I think's in Queensland somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? There's one in Perth. Get on the internet, have a look. But yeah, Bitcoin's about building a community, and it's about how it can help the little person, right? Because stocks and bonds and Wall Street, it's all about helping rich people, really, and that's where I started coming at it from, right?
Yeah.
If you want to go off track a little bit, I came on here a couple of months ago. I used to invest in real estate, right?
Yeah.
Now, I started investing in real estate because I was smart enough to realise that houses went up faster than money was worth, right?
Yeah.
So I also realised that if you bought a house and 10 years later it was worth twice as much, you haven't made any money.
Yeah.
Because all you had was a house, right? And so what you had to do is borrow money.
Yeah.
So what I didn't really understand is that, money is going down in value, right? Because it's not sound money. And you'll hear this on all the podcasts, and inflation ravages us and all that sort of stuff. But inherently I understood it without sort of knowing the details.
Yeah.
Right. So I got involved, interested in Bitcoin because it was like, oh, that's like property, but maybe it's better.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe it's easier. It's more divisible. I can buy it quickly because at the moment I've got like a house. I want to sell it. I want to buy Bitcoin. Right. But it's bloody hard to sell a house because you've got to convince whoever else you bought the house with that you've got to sell the house. Right. If it's an investment property, you might want to move the tenant on. If they've left mess, you might want to fix it. It might take 6 months. To realise from you actually biting the bullet and getting over that hurdle of just mentally letting go of this investment that you thought was better than anything else, or you wouldn't have bought it. So I've got to get rid of it. I've got something else. You can't just click your fingers and it happens, right? Unlike Bitcoin, where you can just go on an exchange and sell it.
Yes.
If you've got one Bitcoin, you don't need to sell the whole thing. You can sell 0.05 of it and go buy a car, right?
Yeah.
Long story short, that's why I started in Bitcoin. But 3, 4, 5, 6 months into the journey, that'd be great. I'll be really looking forward to if it goes up in value and I can do less things or have greater choices. But really, when I see the people who, on the news complaining that they can't afford their groceries, and I used to think, oh, that's because you're dumb, or you don't work hard enough, or you're not smart enough to have invested when you were young. I used to honestly think that, right? I used to think, I'm smarter than you, I've got more money than you. And I was such an arrogant so-and-so. And now I still am, but I understand that I can actually help them a little bit by saying, don't waste your money by, storing it. Try and buy some Bitcoin, and you will be better off in the long run. Yeah. And if you've then got the hope that, hey, if I've got $100 and I can invest it in something, really, because it sounds like such a small amount, because it is such a small amount compared to how much is a house, $1 million, you go, oh, it's not worth the hassle, right? So you go, I'm just going to buy a burger, or I'm going to buy some beer, or I'm going to buy some smokes, or I'm going to put it on race 5, or whatever it is. That's a very short term, take away the pain, make you feel a little bit better, right? Like eating sugar or fat makes you feel a little bit better today, but it's no good in 3 or 5 years, right? Does not help you.
Yes, very good points.
Right, so society's set up to kind of like make you numb yourself. You watch Netflix. I bang on about Netflix, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, I'll feel better today.
Yeah.
I'll get through today. Today was a happy day. I finished off that particular thing. I watched the end of that latest Paul Dano thing. I've got to think about Paul Dano. I'm going to study everything about him. How did he get that bird? Anyway, but Bitcoin, it's like if you have $100 and you just buy some Bitcoin with it, right? And you do that once a week, once a month, once a quarter, however much you've got, in 5 years you'll be infinitely better off. As opposed to if you had $100, put it in the bank, in 5 years it's worth almost nothing.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a great point.
Because, inflation eats away at it, taxes eat away at it, all that stuff, it's very depressing. So we don't even try. In fact, the system is so bad, you can't beat the system, right?
Yeah.
So you give up. But if you have an understanding of what Bitcoin really is, and it doesn't come straight away, right?
Yeah.
You can start at the bottom of the pile and you can improve yourself. And we know that in a generation's time, our kids will be better off than us if they understand and acquire some Bitcoin.
Yeah, I know.
Like realistically, right?
Yeah,
they will actually be better off.
Yeah.
For the first time in the last couple of generations, we've got something that we can pass on to our kids if, they grasp it, and we can pass it on cleverly enough so that they can grasp it, that someone else can't just come and take it away from them.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter whether you vote left
power.
or right or whoever, right?
Yeah.
They're all... It's the system that's broken. It's not the people, right? And so we blame the people, right? We go, that person's an arse or that person's a so-and-so. And they probably are, but it's really the system is broken, whereas potentially Bitcoin has the ability to bypass the system.
Yeah, no, it's great points, really great points. And, I definitely appreciate your reflection on that as well. And great mindset, great attitude that, it's great that you can kind of take away that and see that in Bitcoiners as well, in terms of at the Bitcoin Bush Bash. And
well, genuinely, they were there because they would like to see a better world.
Yeah, which is...
Not saying that they woke up the first time they bought Bitcoin with that in mind, but it can help transform you.
Well, it's like that video that I showed. Not that I showed, but I spoke about weeks ago as well. I think I actually talked about it to you, where it's like that. What was it? Satoshi? No. Fiat versus Satoshi or something. And you remember that one? So it's like that similar thing where it's like the two societies are the society that relies on fiat, which is what we do now, and the society that relies on Bitcoin.
That's right.
They're just polar opposite societies.
Right. Oh, sorry, I will jump in. It just prompted me to remember something from the Bitcoin Bush Bash. There was a presentation a guy had done, a sort of teaching curriculum for Bitcoin, right? And I think from memory, it might have been schoolofbitcoin.com. Okay. Google, have a look, School of Bitcoin. And there was 4 or 5 hours of free education.
Wow.
On Bitcoin.
So School of Bitcoin.
I think it was schoolofbitcoin.com.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. And it was a little bit like that video that you're referencing that I did look at and that you might have mentioned on the podcast, where it explains what is money. The first thing is, what is money? So you don't understand Bitcoin unless you understand what money is.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not going to explain it on the podcast, but if you want a resource, it's really designed for kids.
Yeah.
Primary school kids, really.
Yeah.
But so as an adult, you go, it's a bit, but it's kind of fun.
Yeah. It's good learning, I'm sure. Definitely.
Basically, getting back to what I learned at the Flamin' Beechworth Bush Bash, except that I learned that Bilson's Brewery is no longer called Bilson's Brewery, but it's still got Bilson's Brewery signage somewhere, but just not on the front. Do you know what I mean? Because they kind of went bust. But they're still making beer, right? Okay. And the Beechworth Brewery is still going. So Beechworth's still a good place to go, even if there isn't a Bush Bash.
Yes.
It's still worth going because they've got 2 breweries. I mean, what more do you want? I mean, if they took Bitcoin, it'd be even better.
Yes, you could go to the brewery and use your Bitcoin.
Anyway,
we need to move on.
We do, but last thing, Bitcoin's not about trying to make money. Yeah. I mean, it is. But that's a side thing.
Yeah.
Realistically, if you're 80% you want to make money, and 20% whatever, it helps the world. Great. That's fantastic, but that's really not what Bitcoin is designed for.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it'll be a side effect that it goes up.
Yeah.
All right. It's not the number one thing.
Yeah, no, I love it. Yeah, really, 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 really interesting, and certainly hope that I can get to one of those if they come back next year or something. It'd be fun to go and have a look and be involved and learn. But really, really appreciate your reflections, and certainly sounds like a good weekend. So
Well, it's certainly something I learned this week, Josh.
Yeah, something you learned this week. So something that I learned this week, Dwight, just a good little segue into our something you learned this week. We love to learn. So I've been using a lot of AI to explore different topics, to explore different concepts. Grok 3, which is on X, so if you have X Premium, you can use Grok 3. It's like the most up-to-date, in-tune AI that I've seen. Like definitely the most balanced because they all have little.
Can you ask it how the Saints are going to go this year?
I know I should actually. I should based on historical data how the Saints going to go this year.
Or will it blow up?
It'll just temper all my expectations. Based on historical data, the Saints will go shocking for the rest of the year. They'll get your hopes up and then they won't make finals. But no, hopefully we change that this year. But Grok 3. So I was looking into Bitcoin. I was looking into like historically and then even from an AI perspective because I've heard people on other podcasts talk about like if what are the AIs going to use? What are the AIs going to because everything's moving towards obviously that AI digital world, right? Like this, we're going to have like self-driving cars very soon everywhere. We're going to have like lots of things that people would do. We're probably going to have robot cleaners in houses in 10 years time. Realistically, like you already see, the stuff that Tesla's doing with their robots and how far they've come in 5 years. Like you imagine another 10 years, 15 years, like there's AI stuff everywhere. So it's like, well, what does AI think? What does AI, when they analyze everything in the world and fiat and cryptos and all these things, what does AI think? So I went down the AI rabbit hole a little bit. So this is what I learned this week. So AI, so literally I typed into Grok 3 and I just said, tell me about
It's got you fooled.
It does have me fooled. But I said, look, just tell me about what almost like that kind of, what do you see in Bitcoin? What do you see in Bitcoin versus all the other cryptos? What do you see in Bitcoin versus fiat? I tried to sum it up here a little bit with what it came back with. But it said, Bitcoin's growth potential is insane. So this is kind of its direct quote to me, writing back to me, right? So it said, decentralization and scarcity are unmatched. So there's nothing else like it that has the decentralization and the scarcity. The user base is growing. And then you've got your big companies and big countries that are all in. So then it's looking at projections. So it says over the next 5 years, $500,000 to $1 million Bitcoin is really plausible. This is in US dollars, which is only a 5 to 10x from now. Bitcoin's hedge against fiat chaos and its crypto king status give it the edge over everything else. Nothing else bends scarcity, adoption, and resilience like Bitcoin, which is interesting because this was before the little decoupling that we spoke about earlier. And it said it made a prediction, and it said that its prediction would be that it tops the growth charts by 2030. So statistically, historically, nothing's leapfrogging Bitcoin at this stage that it can see. So I thought that was really interesting to put it all in there and then say, well, what is, you hear people talk about the AIs. I was like, well, I want to learn for myself. I don't want to listen to someone else. What is this, what is Grok 3 actually, what's it going to tell me? What's it going to spit out? And that's what it spit out. So I thought, finishing on a little bit of bullish, what did you learn this week? I thought reading that, I was like, that was pretty bullish.
Absolutely.
Do you own enough Bitcoin, V?
Not according to Grok 3. No, not according to me either. I'd like to own a little bit more, Josh.
Yes,
so if I gave you my wallet address, if you could send me some, that'd be great.
How about we start? I'll start a strategic reserve. You can start a strategic reserve.
Look, anybody out there who's financially illiterate and doesn't understand how much that a Bitcoin is worth, just send me some.
Yes,
that'd be great.
Perfect. Or anyone at your Bitcoin bush bash that happens to listen to this, just who has thousands of Bitcoin. Just send Dwight one for sponsoring you guys, just for, and if we ever get thousands of Bitcoin, Dwight, then we'll send you one for going out there for us and relaying what you saw and what you've learned. So
I learned that it's not profitable to go mining, but that it's fantastic and you're really contributing to the decentralization of the mining pools and everything else. And so I think it's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
But you're not going to make a buck.
Yeah, fascinating. Well, in 500 years, maybe.
But
you said?
Well, there was so much went on. There's so many things I could share, but we've run out of time.
I think we have, mate. But look, thank you so much for coming on. It has been awesome. Really, definitely appreciate the last minute call up as well. So, and so glad you did. Like that was really interesting. Even makes me want to go and attend one of those conferences.
There's nothing stopping you, mate.
Yeah, I know.
Except for work commitments, the missus, the kids, and lack of funds.
Yeah, all those.
Nothing. Absolutely
All those
nothing.
things. But we'll put up our public Bitcoin wallets and send us some Satoshis and get us to the next one. That'd be
Anyway,
great.
we'll be closing the show off and opening it to feedback. And what's the 1-800 number people can call in?
Thank you so much for watching and listening to the Bitcoin Brothers Australia. We hope you've enjoyed episode 11. We hope you've learned something with us this week.
It's 1-800-SEND-SATS.
We'll be back for episode 12. Give us a follow on Spotify and YouTube and all those good things. Help us out. We definitely appreciate it. We appreciate the messages. Keep them coming. Comment. Do whatever you like. Buy some Bitcoin, not financial advice. Enjoy your week. We'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. Go Saints.
Good luck, Saints.
Thanks, Dwight.